Hey guys, Marcel here with another interview. I think we talk to Wunder for the first time, right? If I'm not mistaken. Yeah. After a pretty convincing 2-0, how do you feel about the game?
I feel like the game was, the first game was pretty well played by us. I feel like we played like how we should, and we even communicated better than we do in scrims, so it was good. For the second game the lane swap, they kind of messed up a bit. Like they suicided the tower for some reason, and then after that we swapped when we shouldn't have. So we kind of both messed up, but it still resulted in us being ahead. So our lane swap was still better than ROCCAT's, but it was not acceptable for our standards. And then we got a lead by like making a lot of plays and getting some picks. And then it turned a bit into solo queue, and we had some troubles in closing it out, but we had 2 inhibs. The only thing was they had pretty good comp to sit 5 and clear the wave, like that Caitlyn and Victor. So we struggled a bit to close out the game, but all in all it was pretty well done.
If I'm not mistaken, I think you secured the first win for Taliyah in the European LCS right now. So why do you play top lane? Do you think it's strong? I think it's just a thing that your team does, right? I don't think anyone else in the top lane right now plays it. Maybe I'm wrong, but can you tell me about the champion, why you guys decided to pick it up, and when you picked it up, why you didn't give it to Jungkook's?
So for top lane, I think it has decent matchups into a lot of champs. But it's mostly like a counter pick. And I feel like when he picked Nara this early, because he thought Aurelia banned, Nara is pretty good, then I think he didn't expect Taliyah. But it's a champ, like you could compare it to a champ like Dexter. Pretty good wave clear, pretty dominant in lane in some matchups, but a bit more like roam and probably burst potential, like without using ult. So.
Yeah, that sounds pretty good. So focusing a bit more about you as a player, right? So how would you describe yourself from like last split to this split? Because I think there's a pretty big difference, right? From the one that we saw last split to this split, right?
Yeah, like obviously like I got a lot of experience, and so did we as a team. So last split, in the beginning of the split, it was really hard for basically any lane to do anything, because they were just out macroing us. They were like out experiencing us on like almost every team. So for a top laner, you want to set up TP plays, you want to have good synergy with your junglers so you can set up ganks, but we kind of had nothing, and that pretty much counted for like every lane. We pretty much had like no clue how to play the game on the highest level, so every lane struggled. And then by mid last split, I think we picked up some decent wins here and there, but of course like I grew so much as a player, and that comes from scrimming good teams as well 24/7 and thinking about the game and like talking about the game more serious as a team compared to Challenger.
Yeah, I mean, I just heard a few people just say you're probably one of the case for the most improved player from like last split. Do you think it's a fair statement for them?
I think mechanically I've always been kind of the same as I am now. I think I'm improved in like game knowledge. Like I always thought in Challenger that I was pretty knowledgeable, but of course it's not the same for LCS. So in knowledge, I probably improved a lot, and I consider myself to be a pretty smart player when it comes to that, like pushing out waves or knowing where people are and stuff. Maybe besides the last game we just had, like game 2. But mechanically, I feel like I've always been at this point.
So yeah, overall, you guys are still like a pretty rookie team, right? You guys have like a lot of young players, and then Yamato, he might not look young, but he is pretty young. So how do you deal with him as a coach? Like, what's from your experience? How does he help you? Because I think you can make the case that with like TP and everything, a lot of the team needs to be involved, right? Did he help you in any way to improve in that regard?
Yeah, of course. Like he basically told us how to play the game on the highest LCS plan. So like with doing rotations, like where to go, like who goes on what lane, like he's pretty knowledgeable on that, and I feel like I've picked up on a lot. Even though I was probably like pretty well understandable of what like it meant before I joined, but like he's helping. Of course, he's helping a lot. He has had experience for so long, and like it's just like it's obvious that he kind of helped us grow from the beginning.
All right, I think last week we had an interview with one of your teammates. I can't really remember which we interviewed, but he told me that you guys are pretty much on track to be like the top 3 seed, right? Yeah. After this week, I think you guys have like one more match tomorrow, and it's gonna be like the most important match, right, against Schalke probably, where you guys are really close in the standings. If you 2-0 them, maybe you can actually like lock in the playoff spot for sure, right?
Yeah, like I think if we win 2-0 against Schalke, we are probably secured for playoffs. I think Giants is really well improving right now, and they just played 1-1 against G2. So Giants is probably going to be a contender, and Unicorns seem to be improving as well, even though they kind of dropped down a bit recently, I feel like. So it's probably like, as it stands right now, we're standing pretty well in the standings. So it's definitely a top 4 we're aiming for, and top 3. So.
Okay, one last question. I think this might sound like a little bit too much, but maybe you can answer that, right? So the game right now involves around like macro decision a lot, right? You have teams like Origin who struggle a lot in early game, but they seem to always figure out what to do in late game, right? So how come that a team like full of experienced veterans can't really, like what's the problem from Origin right now maybe to improve as a team, because they have all these experienced players, but they can't really figure out what to do in order to be like a lot more successful, right? And then you guys as a rookie, you just need like one split, and you guys are playing pretty decent League of Legends right now, right?
Yeah, I think for Origin, it's like the game is evolving all the time, so maybe some players have the trouble catching up to the meta, and I feel like the champions they play might not be. Then they might not have the biggest champion pool, so they can do a lot of strategies. But I think it comes down to, like, of course, individual skill matters, but a lot of players are really even right now, so it's not like by a huge margin. So, but for Origin's case, I think they're still a bit behind the mechanics compared to a lot of top teams, and they might not have the best communication right now, which is a big part of the game.
So you mentioned individual skill, everyone is pretty even. I think everyone can like see that, for example, in the mid lane, there's no top tier mid laner. I think everyone is on the same level, right? Is it the same case for the top lane, or who do you think is like maybe the strongest top lane right now? Who do you respect the most maybe? Who do you like up to if you want to learn new things?
I think definitely coming into the split, Luamne, Carbochat, and Vishichachi are like the top 3 top laners that I feel like when I play these guys, it's pretty hard. And for improving top laners, I feel like Steve and maybe Smitty J, like he seems to play pretty well. So I don't really play him a lot in scrims, so I wouldn't know too much. But Steve, at least, he's pretty good in lane, and he's pretty good like macro understanding as well. So these four top laners mostly, I think, are really strong. And then when it comes to the weakest top laners, probably the top laner I played today, Parang, when he came to Europe, I feel like he was doing really well, and I played him in solo queue. He seemed like this guy was actually decent and a good pickup. But I don't really play him anymore in solo queue, and we don't scrim them. But here and today on stage, he felt like he played respectful, but also he didn't push his limits at all.
All right, I think we leave it at that. Thank you so much for this interview. Always a pleasure to interview the Splyce guys. And if you want to check out more stuff from us, or me specifically, check out theScore eSports.com, our website, download the app, follow us on Twitter, and make sure to never miss an interview.